Live.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Kiss and Tell again. Thank you for joining us again on this Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Every 2 weeks, we're on for your Q&A. And this time, of course, we've got Dr. Jenny, we've got me, Dr. Sabrina, we've got Jay, the lovologist, and we've got Steph here, who's always wonderful in asking our questions. Today, some of the questions that we've got that we're going to be talking about. First, let's give you a little bit of a statistic. Did you know 71.5% of women and 81.5% of men from the age of 25 to 29 in the United States masturbate at least once a year? Of course, for the other ages that we're not talking about, then it does start to decrease about by 10% increments from there. So we're going to be talking a little bit about masturbation, about self-pleasure, what to do, how to do it, with whom, tips, tricks, whatever you need. And then the other thing we're going to be talking about is porn, and whether you watch it, whether you don't, whether you think it's a problem, watch it with partner, by yourself. We're going to get into that. Everyone's got a little bit of something to chime in. And so let's go ahead and get started. Of course, as always, please like, subscribe, listen in, join us every couple of weeks, and then post your comments or your questions, Facebook, wherever you're joining us from, and LinkedIn and Twitter. Let's get going. Dr. Jenny, do you want to start it, or Steph, you're going to start our first question?
So thanks everyone for sending in your questions. Please keep them coming. As you know, I have no shame in asking all of your questions that you think are strange or weird or that no one else can relate to, but trust me, we all do. So I actually kind of want to circle back to a statistic. Once a year, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the questions that stands out to me is, people wonder, is it okay to watch porn? And if I like something in porn that maybe I don't like in real life, does that, like, if I watch porn that's, stuck porn or something, who knows, does that make me a different type of person? Does that make me,
there's something wrong with you? Is that what you're asking?
Pleasure and things. Yeah. So it's like, if you like watching gay porn, but you're not gay, I think
Unidentified gay.
How do I identify myself based on what I like to watch and how I like to pleasure myself to these things?
That's a really good question. Jay, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So this is such a very much of
this
a
question.
heavy, it's a heavy question that has multi-layers to it.
We have a good audience.
Yes. So, masturbation is great. I guess the first question was about porn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or was it about the masturbation question?
How do porn, especially, she was asking in particular, porn in general, but okay. What if you like watching something that you don't necessarily identify, or that you haven't tried, or that maybe you have an issue with even yourself?
Okay. Yeah. So porn in an accessibility aspect. So I always think about individuals with disabilities or individuals that have a touch deficit.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And there's individuals that have touch deficits that may not have access to individuals that are sex workers, or individuals that are body workers, or even individuals that can be that warmth or that release. So porn does allow for that outlet. So I cannot say in good faith that I'm for the dismantle and the eradication of porn, because it serves a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a modicum of education, whether it's a release as well too, but also for folks that may not have that experience, it allows for that glimpse. I will say that when it comes to what we watch and our proclivities, does not always align with what we actually enact in general. We know that there are different forms of attraction. There are romantic, there's emotional, and there's erotic attractions as well too. And sometimes they don't neatly align. Just like someone may be totally into watching gangbangs and may not necessarily be into actually being in a performance.
They're not ready to have a train ran on them.
Yeah. Have a train ran on them.
I didn't want to do the exact question, but the question was, I like watching threesome porn and what that goes along with it, whether it's male, female, whatever. But I don't want to have one. But does that make me, should I tell my, significant other? So that was kind of,
I love this.
I'm reading into the question a little bit, but it was like, I like to watch this. Does that mean that I should try it? Does that mean that?
I think that when it comes to our eroticness, how our brain operates when it comes to stimuli and passion and intimacy and eroticism. Sometimes our brain and our stimuli, when it aligns to something interesting and it piques us and it piques our curiosity, sometimes we're driven towards that. Not necessarily that we will enact that, but that also lies the danger
Mm.
of heavy pornography as well too, right? Because there's
Yeah.
porn
Mhm.
addiction.
Hey,
There are
Jay,
individuals that get that lack of sensation or that too much of an exposure that can,
what if it gets
deplete them.
fetishized
Yes,
too? Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Dr. Jenny, what do you have on it? And then because I want to circle back to Jay, you brought up a piece and Steph into it that I think is a really good conversation. Um,
Hmm.
but before we get into the addiction or any of that stuff, Dr. Jenny, what do you think about porn watching? What are your thoughts? What do you see?
Well, what I normally say to people is it's okay and healthy, but what is unhealthy about it is when you cannot share that with your partner. What I mean by that is you do it in secret.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't let them into that part of your world,
Yeah.
of your fantasy.
You're
Uh,
only as sick as your secrets.
right,
Well, and then the fetishizing too, that,
right,
it starts
right.
to happen.
Yeah, but that's a whole different conversation. But what I mean by that is you can use the porn as a turn on for both of you. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
do the behavior you see. It's the conversation and connecting as a
Mm-hmm.
you
That ties into another question we got was how I want to know what my partner is turned on by. I want to ask them to watch porn with me, but I'm afraid that they're not going to like what I like.
That's a
So
whole
that
nother
kind
can
of
of
ties
worms, isn't
into that too. So I think we've expanded on that topic a little bit, but I think that goes into what you were saying, Dr. Jenny. So I just wanted to make that question out there so you can, because you already half answered it. So that way our listeners know I'm, reading their questions for them.
Well, that's part of communication that I always talk about. And probably have said it way too many times. And I'll always say it, but communication's the key. And part of doing the communication when you're talking about something turns you on, but it's embarrassing, is you're vulnerable. So that's really what the fear is. It's that judgment. But you have to realize that your partner feels the same way. There is something that they're embarrassed about too, or they're worried that they can't share that too. So it's one of you taking the risk allows the other one to say, "Oh, we can have this conversation and be fine and be safe."
Mm-hmm.
I will say, and I may be an outlier when it comes to this as well too. When it comes to sexual health professionals, this is a very contentious issue. I will say that it's totally okay to have your own kink that is not tied to an individual or a partner.
Mhm.
And just like I can have, let's say, I have a particular kink that my partner does not have,
Mhm.
and especially for being in a polyamorous, myself
Mm-hmm.
also being polyamorous, and ethically non-monogamous, but also for individuals that are single or not partnered, it's totally okay to have a kink that is not tied to partnership or ownership as well too.
Yeah.
So when we think about that, you know we can also say, hey, like, my partner may not be down to watch this type of porn, but knows that this is something that is important to me, that it's not necessarily a secret, that I'm hiding from them, and that's totally okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that. For me too, and what I see and what I think. Number one, porn, fabulous. Go for it. Lots of different types, lots of different reasons that people are using it. Jay, you'd mentioned that in the beginning of when you were talking about it too. And I just want to bring that up for folks that might have a turnoff towards porn, or if they've got this certain kind of idea that it's whatever, if it's gutter or there's a lot of bad feelings. There is some of that kind of greasy underworld stuff. So we want to acknowledge that, right? That is out there. And just like you said, training for some people. For some people, they don't have access or don't want access to an actual physical person, right? That's an assumption that even if they would want to be involved with a sex worker or anyone else, if they were having difficulty finding a partner. But then there's also all types, right? So there's women's, there's men's, there's older folks and the silver foxes, and there's the gangs, and there's the other abled, and there's actual training videos of how do you use different types of toys. And so for some people, it really is, how do I do this? Now, the thing that I want to say about porn in particular is there does need to be some discretion, right? Like in that, not to judge what your thing is, and not even a fetish, kink, or whatever it is that you're into. There's somebody else that's into it. So first of all, fabulous. You're not the only one. So I want to say that. And because you're not the only one, did you know, a little fun fact, 80% of the internet is actually porn? Did you know that? 80% of the entire internet. So I think most of us as sexologists or sex therapists or whatever, we know that porn's pervasive. But when I heard that the other day, I was like, are you like, I mean, I know it's a thing,
Just
but damn, it's a thing. And that's also telling on how much we're still not really talking about this either, right? Like, if we've got that big of an industry for people that still feel by themselves and a lot of times feel like they have to do this in the closet, or, you know, if they've given themselves permission with their partner, fabulous, but it's still kind of a hidden thing. Most people don't come up and say, hey, yeah, hey, babe, or hey, friends, I was thinking about a threesome. Don't know if I really want one. I was watching that porn. Seemed like a cool idea. What do you think? We don't do this. So the thing that I wanted to address with it is like, one, again, you are not alone. There are other people that are into whatever you're into. As long as you're not hurting yourself or others, that's kind of how I feel about it. And even then, is it hurting you? I brought up the word fetish, and then I'll be quiet and let you guys jump in. But I brought up the word fetish, and since I brought it up twice, I want to kind of define it because I don't want to shame either on any sense of that. And what I mean by that, then, when we say something's become fetishized, as far as the definition, it's when it's becoming a problem for you and interrupting your daily routine, not because Dr. Sabrina or Jay or whoever or Vogue told you that you're wrong and you're doing too much or too little. It's because you recognize it as an issue and that it's an interruption, and or you're kind of like what you were saying, Dr. Jenny, you want to cordon it off and you're not sharing it with partners. It does become a part of your world. People start getting really anxious when their routine is broken up, if they've got something truly like fetishized like that. So anyway, that's what I meant by it. I just wanted to open that up and throw that out there for whatever else we're gonna get grooving onto it. And what do you think about that? You got ladies have anything else to say about it?
I think I'm thank you for that clarification as well too, especially for the audience, because I don't want people to think that having a fetish is necessarily like wrong. It's okay to have a fetish. Even when it comes to pornography is great, but you still want to keep in mind, as the viewer and as the individuals that are watching, is it consensual, safe, and sane?
Thank you.
So we get into realms of when there are things that you're watching that may not be consensual, safe, or sane. Now we have BDSM, we have, you know, sadomasochism when it comes to pornography. Oftentimes you'll see in those videos that there's a primer conversation. If it's done correctly,
if they show that,
done correctly, you're going to see the before care and after care. And that is when you know that you may have a high quality BDSM porn, because they're showing before and after care.
Almost like a how to.
Yes, like a how to. And that this is consensual.
And just some of those little pieces that are important about that, because honestly, when I did a panel with a bunch of folks and went to different dungeons and stuff, mind blown at the amount of conversation that happens. Just real quick, and you gave that preface, and for people that don't know what that means too, for the before and after care, there's a conversation that this is consensual. There's a lot more conversation within the BDSM community that's also kind of a taught and a thing, the vocabulary, than what's out in the world, like that we need. The rest of the world really needs it. Just not just safe words. That's what most people know about it.
Yeah.
But do you have any injuries, physical injuries that would keep you from being able to do a position? Imagine asking somebody that. Are you comfortable? Not just are you having an orgasm or, whatever your thing is that you say. So that's part of what I wanted just to say for that pre and post care. And yes, high quality for that BDSM. And that's what we mean is there's a loving conversation that might possibly happen. And a lot of people don't associate love with BDSM. So if you missed it, it might have happened. It might not have.
I think part of it too is just kind of circling back to what we were talking about just at the beginning with porn is having that discourse to what do we want from, what are we willing to take away from this? What do we think about each other? What do I want to do to make you happy? How do I do it? And how do I give you the tools you need to make me happy? Because I think that that's important. I think people don't look at it that way. But I think saying, oh, well, they just have to know, then, well, that's never going to happen. So with communities like that, and I have, met with a bunch of, I met with a bunch of people who were, in that world. And they were like, it's one of the most caring, groups of people you can be around because they ask the questions.
And the questions that we should all be asking. I wish they taught it in school, quite honestly.
And people feel
I don't know how we would do that, but
people feel shame around asking those questions. But I guess when you're putting yourself, sometimes your life really, I mean, depending on what you're into, you just need to have that openness. And I think, it's important for that to kind of translate through, every aspect of your life.
Totally. Can I say something real quick before you get the question? Because then I want to ask Dr. Jenny. The last thing that I wanted to say that I think was kind of implied, but I want to make sure that we're not assuming, is that we're all pretty porn positive here, and which is lovely, fabulous, and awesome. And at the same time, I do want to give the disclaimer that we also know, Jay, you said it, quality. Right? What is the purpose, the intent of the people who are making it, who's making it, and for what audience? You need to make sure that you understand what you're looking for and who's going to be delivering it and kind of where you're getting it. Because of the fact we do have people that are looking at these to learn, literally, and they think that then this is real, right? Some of it can be. A lot of it is not. So if it's not real and this is acting and the sounds and the positions and the limberness, the not flubbing, the not queefing and not laughing in the middle of it or being fully embarrassed or not embarrassed or, the things that happen in regular bedrooms, we don't see those things. So I do want to say it might not be real. And in which case, men's, women's, others, and friends, if you're basing your sex life and your friend's life and your sharing life off of these, you might be sadly mistaken, or you might have some issues if you don't know how to communicate around this a little bit,
not everyone has
vocabulary. I did want to say that.
Not everyone has a fluffer. We can't all expect. And for those of you at home, don't look it up unless you really want to know. So. And I think that goes back to topics we've covered in past podcasts, is just kind of this projection of what everything should be. I mean, even from what I should be feeding my kids. But I am taking my little notebook note of everyone's questions, so keep them coming. And one of the ones that I saw that I thought was really interesting is dildos. When is it too late to start? Like, I'm in my late 50s. And my husband is not very interested in sex, so I'm interested in trying dildos. My fear is that I will no longer find sexual pleasure in intercourse with my husband. Or that So my interpretation of that is that it would kind of, desensitize. But awesome question. I think a lot of people struggle with that. And B, I think dildos just in general have a huge, we could do a whole TED talk. 6 months.
Jenny, you want to tackle that one first, and then Jay, you want to go?
Sure. Thank you. And that is an interesting question. And just to clarify, that can happen regardless of what age you are. You know, you can be in your 20s
Yeah.
and this can happen. So don't equate the question to age.
Mm,
However, the dildo is a way for you to re-equate yourself with what you like about having sex, the pleasure, the orgasm, reminding yourself, hey, sex is wonderful, sex is great,
Yeah.
yippee. So, but as far as you losing connection with your partner, that's a possibility, but it's not something that cannot be reignited.
Yeah. Well, the question was if
Mhm.
so that her husband was not necessarily as sexual as he used to be or as she was. I'm kind of reading into that a little bit, but her needs have changed, and if she starts using a dildo or whatever kind of toy she wants to use, how will it change? If
Kind of
will it
like,
change
will
my
her body
pleasure
cling
moving
to it?
forward? So if you decide that this is something you want to explore, is there a risk of losing sensation in a way that would not make, if your partner does decide, hey, this is tonight's night,
You might have some type of power tools like that. You might chip your teeth and it might become a freaking hazard, but otherwise,
well, I guess essentially the root of the question
I'm
is,
kidding. Go.
would it desensitize me, and
Yes.
is it too late in life to kind of explore that?
We got it.
The easy answer is no. I mean, I know I'm making it sound simple, but no, it won't. It will only do that if you allow it to do that. Meaning, the choices that you make after using the dildo and continuing to use it is the choices you're making, including your partner or not? Or you isolating yourself similar to the porn, using porn?
Yeah.
The dildo can be the same thing. So you can use the dildo as a teaser to get your partner interested. Because if they see you using it, more than likely they'll be interested in what you're doing.
There you go. That's the answer to your question, love. I'm not going to put your name or anything, your screen, but
Jay, you want to jump in? And right before you do, dildo, you said in particular, just giving some little a dildo doesn't vibrate. I'm just telling what it is. It might be penis shaped, it might not. It doesn't vibrate. It's just literally a phallic shaped something usually, right? Then there's vibrators that can be phallic shaped or not, might have a little beaver, whatever your favorite little animal is on it, or not. And it vibrates, remote control or plug in batteries, whatever you want. And then there's also like cock rings, and then there's these other types of things. So and other little clit ticklers and these other stuffs. So dildo, go ahead, Jay, please.
I don't think it has to do necessarily. She just put dildo in the thing. So.
Sure. And I'm just saying so we know.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful question, because at the end of the day, she's still centering the needs of her partner. And although, this question can be posed at any age, any consenting age. But I will say that age is a factor for this conversation, because I want to know if there's any erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
I want to know if there's any health concerns that this partner has had. And if that's the case, then it may be more than just tempting them with this toy. It may be something medical that is preventing this person from performing. And if that's the case, there could be potentially, one, a shame that can occur from utilizing this toy in front of or in the presence of that partner. So I would have to know a little bit more of the details in order to really give that kind of conducive advice. But I will say, to echo Dr. Jenny, no, really, I guess I would want us to back up and say, why would you feel that this would be something that could potentially cause a desensitization of your partner? Has it already occurred?
So Yeah, so my understanding of the question, and to kind of tie everything that you both said, because I think it's really interesting. So the way it's said is, I'm getting older, my body has changed, my husband's not as interested as he once was. I want to explore this, but I'm afraid that I'll lose sensation.
Okay.
So is that a
So
fear?
fear that it's going to be more
Is
pleasurable
this
than the
something that I'm going to
partner.
start?
Like,
But I
Yes.
kind of
is she
like,
going to ditch her man for her dildo?
yeah,
Yes.
so I think to
Yeah,
tie it together,
exactly.
though,
Let's just say it.
I mean, a lot of people have.
Yeah. Hey.
And me, I would
is-
have to back up and still ask that question. Has
Mhm.
yeah,
there already been a breach
Yep.
prior to make you think that that is even possible?
Yep.
Because when it comes to intimacy with a partner, we know that it is way more emotional and
yeah,
metaphysical than physical. And if there is that kind of tempered view that this may take this person's place, is there something already tempered within you that feels
Mm.
like this could be possible?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
I would want to back up and have
Well,
that
I have a
conversation.
tangent question of my own. So, if
You got to ask
if
quick because we're coming up right here at the
I
end there, Steph, and then I'm going to close us out.
in a relationship and that person, like you said, might be suffering with erectile dysfunction or some other, thing that changes their sex life, how, and kind of just going back to pleasure, if you find something that you're going to use or that you find pleasure in, how would you suggest that someone ropes their partner into that? So if the fear is that, I'm going to start doing this and then my husband's going to be like, not useful to me anymore, or our relationship's going to suffer, or I'm going to not be able, whatever it is. How do you address the conversation of, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is where we're, not aligning, and then this is my proposed, remedy?
I
Yeah.
think you just answered your own question. I think I would pose it exactly like that.
Yeah.
Right. Imagine that. Communicate with the partners, right?
Yeah.
I love this. Thank you, Steph, for bringing in the questions, and Jay for bringing in your wisdoms and your knowledges and ground in self, and Dr. Jenny with your experiences as well. I'm going to answer this question and then we will wrap up. If there's a quick something though, ladies, then I'll give you an opportunity as well. So real quick then, to answer the question, I just want to answer it as outright. Are we afraid that your man is going to be replaced? Dr. Jenny, you kind of said that. That's kind of up to you. Our bodies want, especially men and women, but women, our bodies really work well to adapt. We can train, men and women, our bodies very well to any stimulus and cue, right? And we can train it to multiple orgasm or not all kinds of things. Turn this on, turn this off. If we have an idea of pain or pleasure, we can make something pleasurable or painful, right? All of these different things. So if you want it, and kind of then to piggyback, Jay, on what you were saying is, if there's a pre-existing something going on, right? If there was already a breach in trust, if there was already hurt feelings, things were said, ultimatum, we don't know the whole story, but if that stuff's already been going on, then this could be hurtful, this could be scary, and it could be a breakup, right? Otherwise, in roping someone in, we don't have to rope anyone in. What if we could approach the conversation first for ourselves, take a couple of breaths, and try and remember that our partners, if it is a partner, for the most part, they really care about us. And for the most part, they might also have some of these fears to say some of these things. And so however you can get it out, get it out. If you got to text it, if you got to send it in a little paper, if you can just blurt it out across dinner when it felt inappropriate, when you were in the shower, because that's when you had the gumption and the moxie at that. I don't care. Say it, right? And it can start out little. It could start out, hey, let me take a picture, or I would love to see this, or what about this? I don't care if you bring it back to freaking 4th grade and you write them jokers on a paper and you slip it to them and they circle the ones they like. If that's what you need to do for the two of you and that's where you're at, that's where you're at, right? So yeah, I just want to, yes.
Back and I had it all folded up. Like,
be where you're at. That's it for any of this, whether it's porn, whether it's self-pleasure, when it's masturbating, if it's partners and no partners and you want to train, you don't want to train, I don't care. Be where you're at there's somebody into what you're into, whatever kind of weird you like. There's somebody weird, you're not alone. And there's lots of people, lots of places that these folks congregate. So I do want to make sure we are at the end of time. Again, Jay, how do people, real quick, how do people get a hold of you outside of Kiss and Tell? We're going to give our information, but they want to know and hear more from you, Jay. How do they get a hold of you?
At Jay the Loveologist. You can Facebook, Instagram, all of that jazz. I also wanted to say, for that person that may be, especially with the dildo, why don't you clone your own? Why don't you clone your partner's willy?
Yes.
I love that idea,
Why
especially
don't you
since
clone
your
it?
relationship and like not being able to perform for each other.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a silicone mold. You can clone
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
Yep. You can do them at home. Such a good idea. Such a good idea. Dr. Jenny, anything for your wrap up, and where do people get a hold of you for our conversation on self-pleasure, porn, anything else?
They can get a hold of me at Dr. Jenny at kissedandtellmagazine.com. If you have questions that you want to talk about on our next podcast, April 5th, it's a Q&A. Or you can go to the website and fill out the form, ask us.
Beautiful. So our next Q&A is April 5th, 7 p.m. And then in 2 weeks, though, or don't we have our next, give us that information real quick, will you please, Dr. Jenny?
Yeah, our next one is in 2 weeks. It's a Q&A. And then the one after that will have a guest.
Yes, our guest podcast. Okay, beautiful. And I'm Dr. Sabrina Rojek, and I'm at Sabrina Rojek or at Dr. Sabrina Rojek pretty much everywhere. You've been with Kiss and Tell. Thank you so much for listening. Send in your questions.
Yes.
We love interacting with you and for making this happen. And we will see you next time and in 2 weeks. Kiss and Tell Magazine, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.